Well, Michael, thank you so much, and thanks to you and Chris for being part and helping to drive and found this incredible organization. And Katie and I have enjoyed the tremendous hospitality of so many of you. Tom and Joy Mistel, who we're living at their house right now with them right now, and then Bob von Herbelis, who picked us up. I actually flew out to California to pick us up and brought us here. And then Kate and Jeff, and then Stephen did a phenomenal job with the auction, didn't he? I mean, let's give him a round of applause. Wow. And I mean, for Katie and I, it is a huge privilege for us to be here with an organization that is dedicated to enhancing quality of life through therapeutic recreation and education. This is an organization that I think is really important to our veterans, obviously, but also to our country. And I'd like to just say a few words about that. But first, I can't believe Butch was here. I'm so glad to see Butch. Phenomenal. And I just want to tell a little bit of a story now, just quickly, because I want you to know what he and I had the privilege of being part of together. We were in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment. Butch commanded our Apache helicopter attack troop. And I'll tell you, when you're on the ground, as those of you know who have been in the Army and Marine Corps, one of the great things about being in the U.S. Army is one of my old platoon sergeants said, hey, if you mess with one bean, you mess with the whole burrito, And what that means is you can bring tremendous power to bear. And I'll tell you, Butch was with me on my worst day in Iraq and on our best days in Iraq. And when we lost our first casualty, our first trooper killed in action, Private Knott, part of my security detail, I was in a communications dead zone, but I was able to get a satellite communications out that we had been hit, and we're conducting an operation to identify the enemy who had attacked us, and we're evacuating Private Knott. My command sergeant major was severely wounded in that same attack, and the first person I called and the first person who arrived was Butch as the flight lead of his section of AH-64 Apache helicopters. And then, thank you, Butch, for your courage and service. And then he led his troop with great distinction in an operation we conducted in the city of Tel Afar, Iraq. And I refer to this operation at the end of this talk, so I want to maybe just set the stage for it. Tel Afar, Iraq was the Fort Benning, Georgia, now Fort Moore, Georgia, or the Quantico, Virginia of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It was their training base. It lay astride routes that allowed them to bring in foreign fighters, terrorists from Syria across a 280-kilometer border with Syria into this really dense urban area, like a 17th century Ottoman city with layers and layers of buildings. It was just hard to get even in there, which made it perfect for them to train, perfect for them to indoctrinate young people who they brought into their warped, depraved cause. They taught courses there as part of the curriculum, kidnapping and murder. They had courses on, obviously, roadside bombs, snipers, mortar courses, first aid, but also propaganda courses. And they would outfit these cells and spread them out all across Iraq. But Tel Afar itself was an incredibly violent place. And what they did is they terrorized the population and created a cycle of sectarian violence in the city. I'll tell you one anecdote that occurred the first week we were there. They had gone into the Shia part of the city, kidnapped a 12-year-old boy, murdered him in the hospital that Al-Qaeda controlled, cut his body open, stuffed him with his body with explosives, and left him at a traffic circle. So when his father went to reclaim his body, they remote detonated the body and killed the father. Now that sounds, it sounds almost incomprehensible. And I won't go into some of the other stories, but this was a city that had the life choked out of it. This was a city that had been traumatized for over a year. The schools have been closed for over a year. The marketplace has been closed for over a year. And Butch and his troop were a huge part of liberating that city from Al-Qaeda, defeating the enemies of all civilized peoples, almost what was really a modern-day frontier between barbarism and humanity. So how about a round of applause for Butch and the troopers of the 3rd ACR. Well, I think that Higher Ground I love this organization because I think it's really important because the organization also serves as a bridge between our veterans and those currently serving and those in whose name we fight and serve. And an increasing number of our fellow Americans have only a vague understanding of military service. And as a result, it's very easy to see the hardships of service, but it's hard to imagine the rewards of service, rewards that derive in part from the ethos that binds our servicemen and women to each other and to those in whose name they fight and serve. Popular culture clouds, I think, our understanding of military service because films and video games often they cheapen and coarsen our warrior ethos. Moreover, our veterans are more often, as Derek said, Derek and I did not coordinate our talk, but they're completely meshed together. Our veterans are often portrayed as fragile human beings, unable to exercise agency or authorship over their future, either on the battlefield or when they return from battle. So we need great organizations like Higher Ground to help our fellow Americans understand the rewards of service and the ethos that binds America's warriors to one another. So I thought what I might ask is for us to consider 3 aspects of military service that are little understood. And I think it's worthwhile because it might help us, as we talk about these aspects of service, it might help us attract young volunteers, the best men and women, those who we really need to our armed forces. And also, I think if we understand these 3 aspects of military service, it will also strengthen the bonds between our military and our society. First, hard to understand rewards of service include contributing to important missions larger than any individual and being members of teams committed to excellence and bound together by mutual respect, common purpose, and really affection. Our military's teams take on the qualities of a family. The man or woman next to you is willing to give everything, including their own lives for you. So we might help explain what is absent from Hollywood movies to our fellow citizens so they understand the warrior's calling, the warrior's humaneness, and the commitment to his or her fellow warriors, and that sense of honor that compels warriors to act courageously, endure hardships, take risks, and make sacrifices. Second, we should welcome our veterans into our communities and encourage them to join organizations like Higher Ground that bring them together with each other and their fellow citizens. I'm thinking of the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger and how he describes how military units take on that quality of a family. And then as Derek explained, as he turned that hourglass over, that's a critical moment of transition. And often soldiers who are in this community where they're so psychologically and emotionally connected to one another find themselves in this society today that is better connected to one another than ever electronically, but increasingly distant from one another psychologically and emotionally. As the psychiatrist and author Jonathan Shea wrote, what a returning soldier needs most when leaving war is a living community to whom his or her experience matters. Higher Ground provides that community. Organizations that mobilize veterans and citizens to serve one another, cope with hardships, and overcome challenges are particularly powerful, not only for the good they do, but also for the understanding that they foster. Third, we might help Americans understand that their servicemen and women are both warriors and humanitarians who exhibit courage and compassion. I would like to share with you an excerpt from the letter that the mayor of Tal Afar, Iraq, Najm al-Jabouri, wrote to Butch, me, and all the troopers in our regiment as we departed Iraq in 2006. General Najm is now the governor of Nineveh province after leading Iraqi forces in the defeat of ISIS after Al-Qaeda returned after our withdrawal in 2010. But this is what he wrote to our regiment. To the courageous men and women who have changed the city of Tal Afar from a ghost town in which terrorists spread death and destruction to a secure city flourishing with life. to the Lionhearts who liberated our city from the grasp of terrorists, to those who spread smiles on the faces of our children and gave us restored hope through their personal sacrifice and brave fighting, and gave new life to the city after hopelessness darkened our days, to the families of those who have given their holy blood for our land, we all bow to you in reverence, and to the souls of your loved ones. Their sacrifice was not in vain. They are not dead, but alive, and their souls hovering around us every second of every minute. We see them in the smile of every child and in every flower growing in this land. Let America, their families, and the world be proud of their sacrifice for humanity and life. So let us explain to our fellow citizens that our warriors serve them and all humanity as we connect our veterans and our warriors to one another and to their fellow citizens. And as we work on these three tasks, we may also help our nation emerge from a time of crises and polarization. The cohesive teams that comprise our military and our first responders take on the qualities of a family in which bigotry, racism, and other forms of intolerance and prejudice has no place. There's no identity politics. There are no critical theories on the battlefield. Our warriors and veterans are bound together as our nation should be bound together through a sense of common purpose, mutual respect, and willingness to sacrifice for one another and for future generations. We might learn from our veterans and our warriors as we work to transcend political and social divisions, nurture our republic, and build a better future. So, hey, I want to thank Higher Ground for the tremendous work you do for our fellow citizens and our warriors in helping them overcome challenges and enjoy the freedoms and liberties that they fought to preserve. And I want to thank all of you for your generosity. It was awesome tonight to see this tremendous outpouring of support for this great organization. Thank you. Thank you. And it's a great, great honor for Katie and I to be here. Katie skied here when she was young. It's my first time. We love it. We'll be back. Thanks to all of you.